So if you've ever gone up to a DJ and you request a song and he's like, wait, it's because of that. So overall, regarding to how music is kind of scientific, I kind of talked about the layout of how you pace a party, but the one thing that also you break down is the key and the BPM or beats per minute of a song. So when I start a set, I like to try to mix as much as possible. There's different styles of mixing. Some people just hit play on the song at the most popular part. Some people mix from song to song and pay attention to transitions. So like in a course of party, I might start around, say I'll do like 100 BPM or 80, 90 ppm. 80 and 90, you're going to get a lot of old school R&B. 90 to 100, even to low 100s, you're going to have a lot of dance hall, a lot of hip hop, things where people are two-stepping. As you get into that 110 range, then you start approaching a Mapiano, that Kaytranada type music. 120 to like 130, 135, you get house, you get reggaeton, or not reggaeton, baile funk, things where it's a lot more fist pumping, a lot more, you could get a lot of dancing going there. And that's a great place to just keep the party. But the way it works is if you go up to 130, 140, that ends up being 70 times 2, and 70 BPM is the BPM for trap, Jersey club music. You get a lot of music that is unique to different areas. You can mix in Chicago juke music a little bit slower. So then you go to 70, you can bring it up a little more, and then you're approaching 80, which is back to that R&B, some faster trap music. So it's very much a cycle. So if you've ever gone up to a DJ and you request a song and he's like, wait, it's because of that. He might be at 100 BPM and you're asking for Ice Spice, which is 70. But if he transitions straight to that 70, it's going to sound really weird. So just know that a lot of people are thinking a lot deeper into the music, into the pacing of the night than you are. Might be at the moment, and that's why I encourage everyone to DJ. The more you DJ, the more you'll notice these things and kind of fit it into how you propose songs.
So that's like when they're changing the music, sometimes it doesn't sound right because the beats are not the same.
So
Okay.
that's a big like point of contention with older DJs and new DJs, because there's something called a sync button where you can hit and it automatically syncs. But the problem is if you didn't prepare your music correctly, then the sync function won't work correctly. So you'll hear it'll sound like gunshots. Like it's not going to sound like the beat is aligned.
Okay, interesting. Welcome back to the Meant to Be. I am Noma Inziduru, the host and creator of this podcast. Today I have with me Edem Asamoah. Welcome, Edem. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. I see you have the albums behind you. Are you a music man? What's the vibe?
Yeah, music is very important to me. I would say music is my love language. I've been involved with it throughout my life in different ways, but definitely a big part of my life.
Awesome. Thank you. And like I said, Edem is a multi-hyphenate. He is a med student. You are an M1, I believe, at U Chicago. You are a DJ. You are a co-founder of not one, but 2 organizations, Sneakers to Scrubs and Elevate Social. How do you do it all? Where do you find the time? That is things we need to get into. But I want to give you the floor and give you the chance to say hello to our audience and kind of, tell us what you're up to today.
So yeah, just a general introduction. My name's Edem Asamoah. My middle name's Kofi. I feel like a lot of people know me by that as well. I grew up in the suburbs of Philly. Did my undergraduate schooling at Duke University. Did 2 years post-grad in San Francisco working in diabetes market research. And now I'm a first year at University of Chicago, planning to do an MD MBA, but currently in the MD program.
Well, that's so cool. That's awesome. Welcome and thank you for being here. Before we get into the deep why medicine and more about your life, I want to give you some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
Very chill, very relaxed, no pressure. Okay. So, if your life were a medical drama, what would the title be?
Sheesh. I'm just gonna go right to Chicago Med. I was watching that a lot when I was prepping for the MCAT, so that pops up.
Okay. That's good. Okay. All right. Kind of segues into my next question. And Chicago Med, because you live in Chicago. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Do you like Chicago?
I love it.
Really?
Honestly,
why do you like Chicago?
My only downside is the winter, but it has turned into an upside. So I feel like the winter is kind of like it forces you to stay inside, prepare, do what you need to do. I was working out more than I was when I was in Cali. So overall, I think it's turned out to be a better thing. It's made me mentally tougher.
That's good. I heard the summer is also very beautiful as well.
Oh yeah, it's
Is it?
like it's starting to warm up. I think today is the first 80-degree day. I'm gonna be DJing at the cookout. So
Oh,
overall, like
nice.
it's a big thing out here
It's cookout season already.
already. We're
Wow.
starting
That's
early.
that's that's great. That's great. Okay. Next question is if you were a patient, which doctor, real or fictional, would you want to treat you?
That's tough. So honestly, I can't think of anyone off the top of my mind,
Okay.
but I would definitely go to U Chicago. I think because of the patient population, the physicians here just seem to have a special touch in the way they communicate with patients and treat patients holistically. So, can't name a person in particular,
Okay.
but definitely someone from U Chicago.
Wow, that's great. That sounds a lot. That's good. My last question is, so in your M1, have you done patient care? Have you worked with patient populations yet?
Yeah,
Okay. So what's the most valuable lesson you learned from a patient?
I think, and this is actually relating to a case that we saw yesterday in class, but overall, and again, tying back to that U Chicago, I think the biggest thing is treating the person, not the disease, not whatever's on the paper, not the lab report. So I think in a lot of ways, were doing neuro and talking about how kind of a lot of manifestations of neurological disorders are not visible. And a lot of the times, if someone's, labs don't show that they're having kind of neuropathy in their legs and things like that, it may be discredited or discounted. So just remembering to always be present with the person and treating them holistically, not just looking at the numbers or the graph reports.
Okay, knowledge. Okay, Gems. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, that's the
For
end.
sure,
I'm
for
not going to put
sure.
you under any more rapid questions. Let's get into who you are, Edem, and why you chose to pursue a career in medicine. What is your why?
So I think medicine is very much it's a piece of my what I feel like my purpose, my goal on this earth is. I had exposure to it very early. My dad's a pediatrician, my mom's a dentist. So seeing them, they open practices in the areas and or surrounding Philadelphia, and mostly served Black patient populations. So Sharon Hill, Chester, Upper Darby. During summers, I kind of see them working with Black families, seeing kids coming in and out, and I think this put an unconscious note in my mind that giving back to communities, Black communities, is very important for my family. I think also coming from Ghana, my parents had that kind of instilled in them already, so they kind of just brought the torch here. And building off of that, I think I had to find my own why around that. It wasn't just like my parents were like,
Okay.
"You're set on this path, and you don't have a choice in things." So it started off early exploration, volunteering in hospitals in middle school. I was a patient transporter at Bryn Mawr Hospital. I did some work at Penn Hospital as well. But I think when it really started to hit me was my experience with football. So I was really into athletics, sport, weightlifting. I had a number of concussions during high school football and ultimately decided not to continue into the college level. But
Mm.
for me, I think navigating like neurological symptoms, I have tinnitus in my ears and some what's it called, neuropathy in my legs as well from like heavy lifting. I think just trying to understand the neurological basis of those things was my entry into just understanding and loving the science of things. So I've always been interested in kinesiology, neuro, PM&R, ortho, like these type of specialties popped out to me initially. And then I think the other aspect of it was the patient care and having like a desire to not only figure out what the biological basis of disease is, but
Yeah.
also just caring for a person holistically. And I think this ties in with my other interests like music. So I think music heals, medicine heals, physicians can heal, religion can heal. There's a lot of ways to heal people, and that's just at the core of my personality and what I like to do. So I think again, the last piece is just of why medicine versus physical therapy versus other things.
Right,
I think
right.
like I'm a very I'm very much able to stay calm under pressure. And that wasn't always like that, but I've built that trait. And I'm seeing that now that I'm in the middle of medical school, I'm able to DJ, I'm able to shadow, I'm able to get my work done. I'm seeing like these are traits that you can take and translate into medicine. So ER docs are able to use the same skills. You have to be able to take a creative tool set like in music and apply it in the hospital. So there's no clear way to treat every disorder, every disease. You have to take all the knowledge you build up in your preclinical years through your shadowing and experience and use that creatively in medicine. So the more I kind of go down the path, the more I'm seeing like this is just the place I'm meant to be.
Wow, that's beautiful. And one of my favorite things is how like your passions were infused into your career. One of the reasons I wanted to speak with you, and I think I told you earlier, is because I like that you are creative. I like the creative side that is integrated into your career path as a medical physician, as a physician. That's something that I can relate to as well. Being someone who considers herself to be creative, but not wanting to let one side suffer at the hand of the other side. So I want to know how you fuse the two, how you make time for the two in this season of your life.
Yeah, so this has definitely been something I'm working on a lot. It's been one of my biggest focuses for the year, figuring out how to find balance, how to maintain balance, deciding what is sustainable and what's unsustainable. So I've found things that have worked, and I think that one is identifying what energizes you, and then what is draining, and making changes quickly and being adaptable. So for me, I know that like deciding to do music still, DJing, that might take an hour or two out of my weekend to DJ an event, but it energizes me. It takes my mind off of things that were might have been stressing me school wise, and vice versa. When I'm doing schoolwork, I really lock in. I'll time block and sit down for hours and focus on one topic, one lecture, one assignment, and it alleviates kind of any stress that I had thinking about maybe DJing or planning another event. So um, I'll say for one part, I'm just too busy to be stressing about one thing or another. When I'm doing something, it's like I have to just focus on that one thing.
Yeah.
I try as much to like set boundaries on my phone. So a lot of people might see me posting a lot on TikTok, but I post and then I get off the app. Like I kind of just let that
Hmm.
sit in the background. I put on the time limit, so a certain amount of day I can be on my phone. My phone's almost always on do not disturb. And then
Hmm.
also just like knowing how to say no to people. If someone wants to grab coffee at 10 a.m. on Sunday, and I know that I'm gonna have to drive somewhere, drive back, and it's gonna throw off my studying, then it's pretty much something that I'll just have to postpone or figure out maybe just doing a FaceTime call instead.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. So boundaries, time blocking, and saying no. I'm taking notes because those are all things that I'm still really trying to navigate
It
towards.
is hard.
Yeah, that's great advice for sure. I want to go before I want to talk about like the music side. I want to talk about the creative side. I think that's actually what I'm more excited to talk about as well. But I think it's more for us to also get into transforming the dream and the aspiration of you wanting to become a physician into reality and into you ending up in Chicago, your Chicago med story. What was your application process like? You mentioned you took 2 gap years. How do you feel they helped you and nurtured you into getting into Chicago?
Yeah, I think this my gap year process cannot be understated enough. In college, I think I had a moment. I did have a moment where I really had to switch gears and change my mindset because of a an event that happened. So without getting too much into details, it just was a reminder that you can't take your experiences for granted. I just made it a point to take advantage as much as I can of the opportunity I was at. So at Duke, I think I sent maybe 50 emails to physicians, 50 emails to people who were in medical school but previously went to Duke, and luckily we had kind of list for me to navigate through. And I just set up calls. It was the middle of COVID. There wasn't really a chance to talk with the physicians, talk with people in person. Interviews were virtual. So going into that period, I made it a note to talk with people and not just ask them about their why medicine, but ask them about how their specialty has affected their life course. Is there anything
Mm,
they do differently? Would they send their kids into medicine? What did they do in their gap years? How did they feel it affected them? Just really looking at everything holistically. And I think that was one thing that one not only made me more confident for my interviews, but two made me more confident in my why medicine. And going into my gap years, I also was in a mindset of, I just want to get in and get out of the gap years as fast as possible. That was an extreme mistake. And I think it
right.
also came from kind of my parents didn't know what a gap year was, because theirs was just like high school into the 6 year program and then
Yeah.
residency. But
Hmm.
here, I think in the American medical system, it's really uh, emphasis is put on personal development and how each person uniquely contributes to their class environment. So I think me really leaning into my gap years, I was able to work in recording studios. I was able to found Elevate Social. I was able to work at the diabetes market research company and gain an understanding of not only patients with diabetes, but also kind of the inner workings of a small startup and seeing how, you have to make tough decisions to run a business. I was also able to just unwind and just become more of myself in a less stressful environment than undergrad and make a lot of great friends who were able to support me along the way. So I truly attribute kind of the success I've had in my first year of medical school to taking that 2 year time to step back and just simply live life without thinking just 100% about the medical track.
Wow. I really appreciate you for saying that. I think for me as well, when I started my gap years, I was very much like, this is such a weird place. I never thought I would be taking a gap year. I don't like it, but I do think that I am better off for having taken that time off. I 100% agree. I think the
Exactly.
time that you have in between is unique because everybody's story is different, and the person that you're crafted into in those years is very different than when you started your gap year. So I definitely applaud you for saying that. Okay, so now you being in med school, what has your experience been like, and is it everything you expected it to be? What are some tips that you could share with someone navigating through their first year of med school, or rather about to start med school?
So med school has been a great learning experience. It has been tough. But overall, I really am enjoying it. And I think it's making me a better person. It's forcing me to lose old habits, build new good habits. So my experience, I would say we started with anatomy. Anatomy was kind of like a boot camp. I make a lot of analogies, so I would compare it to a sport preseason. So
Okay.
we were on campus a lot. We were in the anatomy lab 2 hours doing dissections. Were really tough. And I think the first thing that a lot of people realized, especially if you're coming from a situation where you're used to getting A's or hundreds on tests, medicine is a situation where they're going to give you more information than it's probably possible for you to learn for one exam. And you have to grab and hold on to as much information as possible, and also understand that you're going to see it over and over and over and over again. So it truly is a lifelong learning situation. You have to approach every task, every test, every learning opportunity as just consistently, and that's how you succeed. So I
Mm,
think learning not to be afraid of failure. And then also the biggest challenge was quieting kind of the negative thoughts of, oh, I'm too far behind, or, oh, like I've missed a lecture. I'm not going to learn anything. Like, you have to be almost blindly confident in how much you're studying and how much you're dedicated to just keeping along the path and trusting the process. So that has been one huge thing. And then in terms of preparing for medical school, there's a lot of things I wish I would have known, but it has nothing to do with studying. So I asked a lot of current medical students, and they said, do not study when preparing for medical school. And I would agree. And this
mm,
is particularly in the summer before medical school. I think the biggest thing you can do to set yourself up is prioritizing good habits. So if you meal prep, making sure that you have consistent food. If you go to the gym, just figuring out what times you can work out, working out efficiently. Also, time blocking and figuring out how you study best. So I know I can't listen to my piano when I'm studying. I'll end up like dancing, doing something weird in the corner. Like, it's
yeah,
over with.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I literally put on rain sounds when I study. I just
Rain,
rain.
that will make you sleep. Wow, okay.
So rain is either rain or like I used to play video games a lot in like middle school, so I'll put on like old soundtracks, things like that. But
Hmm.
just figure out what works for you and stick to it. And also don't compare yourself to other people.
Mm,
I've talked to a lot of doctors who are in great positions now, and they're like, "Yeah, I didn't shadow. I barely shadowed my first year of medical school. Or like, I waited till the summer." And I think I'm in a very competitive class, and I like that for my class. But it's also like, you can't, just because someone goes 6 a.m. before lecture to go shadow a surgery, or they didn't sleep the night before because they shadow a surgery, and then they're in the test hall taking a test with you, does not mean you should do the same thing. Doesn't mean you should
hmm.
compare yourself. So
Definitely. That's wonderful advice. I want to focus in on one part of your story. You mentioned like, don't not being afraid of failure. And as someone who has achieved a lot of things, someone who is in med school, someone who has co-founded two different organizations, building things and maintaining them sometimes comes with stress and comes with discomfort. And it's not failure in the sense, but it's having to navigate the things that you haven't experienced before. So how do you navigate through failure? And if you can share a moment of failure that you went through, give us an analogy. You know, you like analogies. You can give us an analogy of failure, what it was like, and how you pushed through that.
Yep. So I think it's something I've been battling with all my life. I've always tried to put really a high standard for myself and set high goals. So I think like high school sports is one thing that really set the tone for me. Like for discus and shot put, I went to states and nationals my junior and senior year.
I played
Oh
discus.
yeah,
Are you kidding me? That's crazy. Wow, okay.
yeah. That was my favorite event by far.
Wow, great.
But that's one thing where you learn like the pressure is all on you, and not only that, but you might be the best in your area, and then you go to states. Like I think Jordan Geist, he has a national record for shot put. He was my graduation class in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So you'd go and be throwing like 50 something feet in shot put, and then the first place guy's throwing 70 feet and beating everyone else by 10 feet. So for me, I think that's just a lesson that there's always going to be someone better than you. There's always going to be someone, doing X, Y, Z. So I've just always had that mentality that the worst thing you can do is not showing up, not trying, because
Yeah.
someone's out there trying, someone's out there working consistently. And I think the next thing, especially with social media, like I talk about TikTok a lot, but it's a situation where you literally have a marketing platform at your hands, and the people who do well are not the people who take the most time to create each video, but the people who just are consistent.
Yeah.
So the time you spend thinking about whether or not something's good, or like, oh, I wonder what they're going to think if I do this, like you could have already posted 10 times. You could have already put
Agreed.
up 30 shots. You could have already so what I've learned is that the people who are most successful are not the people who, you know, win the most. It's really the people who are putting up the most shots, the people who have
Yeah.
failed the most, and then they end up having the most wins that you end up seeing.
I agree 100%. Yep. The consistency bit is very, very true on social media, but in real life as well. I agree
Yeah,
100%. Okay, wow. Great. I want to transition and pivot a little bit to who you are outside of medicine. So let's talk about sneakers to scrubs first before we talk about Elevate Social. What is sneakers to scrubs? What inspired you to create it, and how can people find it?
for sure, for sure. So
Yeah.
Sneaks to Scrubs was actually spearheaded by some of my classmates and I, mainly Jamil Lausa, one of my classmates. He played basketball at Yale. Coming into our first year, he had an idea of deciding to mix the passion of sports and how prevalent that is in Black culture with the need for more Black physicians in general. And I think doing so via integrating with sports camps, integrating with youth football, basketball teams, and doing things like Stop the Bleed. So Dr. Pratt at U Chicago, he's one of the EM docs. He has an organization called MedKeep, and one of their premier kind of activities is Stop the Bleed, where they go and teach how to prevent too much blood loss following a gunshot wound. So doing
Mm.
things like that, also funneling people into the pre-med pipeline programs, and just building overall awareness for different medical and healthcare careers is the goal of the organization. So there's also a couple other key players in the team. So my roommate Solomon Egbe played football at Harvard. He's also N1 at U Chicago. My classmate Marcus Allen played basketball at Stanford and played on the Lakers for a little bit in the NBA. And then we have Lord. He goes to Rush Medical School and he played in the NFL for a bit and played football at Columbia. So all of us are in medical school. We all are very passionate about this goal, and we're just combining our different skills to kind of get the ball rolling. My main purpose or main goal in helping the organization, I use a lot of creative techniques, so making reels, doing photography, videography, and then also just connecting with my broader creative and professional network in order to kind of just promote the organization awareness. So I think the main way to find us is on Instagram at sneakers2scrubs, TO, not the number two. And we're also on LinkedIn, and we also have an email and a website on the way.
hmm And are you based where you're based in Chicago, you mentioned. So the
Exactly.
organization works with students in Chicago, or do you work with students across
So
the US?
we have our home base is Chicago. We have the most volunteers here, the most operations started. We actually have a team member in New York who's helping starting the New York chapter this summer, and we've gotten interest nationally. A lot of the LA medical schools want to help as well, and we have a organization that hosts kind of virtual fairs and has a kind of a, I'm blanking on the word, but it's a virtual arena where you can kind of come in with an avatar. You can go into different booths, see expos, and it's kind of the similar to how the AMC Virtual Medical School fair is.
Mm.
But we're partnering with them to do national virtual offerings as well. So that's going to be coming soon.
Oh, that's very cool. Very awesome stuff you guys are
Thank you.
doing.
Thank you.
It's a great initiative. Very exciting. Definitely plug in with them, guys, if you're interested, and follow them and encourage them as well. It's a beautiful initiative. Okay, transitioning to Elevate Social. What is that about? Where can people find that? What is that about?
Yep. So this was a very organic start. So moving to the Bay Area, I did not go out that much in college, surprisingly, as much as I DJ now. I mostly was inside studying and making music. So I moved to the Bay Area. I had more free time, and I met my friend Allende. Actually, was recommended to meet him by my college roommate, and they met through the MLT program. So that's like a program where a lot of Black college students interested in going into tech, law, professional careers meet and nationally get to meet a lot of people at different schools. So, extension of that network, I met Allende, and for the first year we were in the San Francisco Bay Area. We kind of just were going out, going to tech mixers, going to different things, meeting people. And at the end of that year, he one noticed that there was kind of a lack of the Black community that San Francisco used to have. You know, gentrification really affected
Right.
population, and that also trickles down and affects the nightlife, the networking opportunities in the city. So really, it was a situation where if you wanted to do things that had kind of the touch of the African diaspora, you had to go to Oakland. And with this in mind, we just decided to have a going away party for him as he was moving back to Brooklyn. And at our friend's rooftop, we got a DJ. We kind of organized our first event, and we had like 300 people come out. So it was kind of way more than expected. Some people took videos,
Wait,
posted it.
300 people?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, wow. On a
Yeah,
rooftop, that's a very
it
small.
was
Oh,
a lot
wow.
going on. We got some calls
No.
from the management, but
Oh, wow.
overall it went well.
Mm.
And people from the event posted it on TikTok. It went viral. Afrotech posted it on their Instagram page, and from there, people were just telling us like capitalize on what you got going on. So we made the logo, came up with the name Elevate Social, posted it on Instagram, made the page, and from there, I think like overnight we had like our first 1,000 followers.
Wow. That's so fast. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. That's good, good stuff. And you DJ as well. One of the questions that I actually asked Adam at the beginning, as someone who is in the crowd, is why DJs don't play, who is it? Why DJs don't play deep cuts? And I want you to tell the people why DJs don't play deep cuts. You're not speaking for all DJs, you're just speaking for yourself. Why don't DJs play deep cuts, please?
So this is this is really tough. The one thing that I will say is that there's the business side of DJing, and
Mhm.
then there's DJing for fun. So
Okay.
as I've gotten into the business side of things, then I start realizing like if you have a venue and you're holding a party from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., the goal of the business owner is to keep people buying as much bottles, buying as much drinks at the bar, paying that overhead, and going over that as much as possible. So, for example, if we've been playing, we start like as there's a timeline with the music. So at the beginning of a party, an opener might play songs that aren't super popular. You're not going to be playing the Ice Spices. You're not going to be playing the new top 100 songs at
Okay.
10 p.m. You're going to wait until 12 a.m. until most people are there. You're going to hit the peak of the party, and from there, you just want to hold that peak as much as possible.
Okay.
So a lot of people who are just focused on money, focused on people buying bottles, are incentivized to just play what people want to hear, which is the viral TikTok songs, the big bangers, throwback R&B, the same songs we've been hearing for the past 10 years, just to keep people in the party physically. Because if
Okay.
they deviate and please like the 20% of the people in that corner, those people might go home. And
Minority rights, though.
exactly. So that is the unspoken thing about a lot of parties that and why people do no requests. What I will say is
Oh
that it
yeah.
also is a venue. So if you go to a party like St. Eve's in DC and they're having Afrobeats on Fridays, like the venue has an expectation of what should be played there versus if you go to a selection party, if you go to a boiler room, if you're going to a party where the goal is to go see the DJ, then it's like
Uh,
respect the DJ, this is for you to come and vibe and dance, no requests. Like that precedent is set. So I think that plays into it a lot. But overall, I like playing a lot of different stuff outside of what I usually play at the parties. And
Mm.
our goal with Elevate Social is that the more we build our name, the more we're just going to go off into our own path. So we're kind of just playing
Uh,
the big hits to draw people in, and then we're going to introduce them to our own personal sound.
Strategy. Okay. Okay. So you'll be playing the deep cuts, but not now. Later
So
down
I'm
the
actually
line is
playing
what
them
I'm.
today at the cookout.
Okay. Oh,
That's where
that's good. That's good.
where people really
That's
hear my
good.
musical taste. Yeah.
That's cool. That's good. And how did I don't think we talked about it, but how did you get into DJing? How did you get into the turntables and
Yep,
all
yep, yep. So actually it's kind of a long story. Well, I'll shorten it. Started off
that?
playing saxophone and piano and kind of up till I graduated high school. And then in college, I also freestyled and sang growing up. So I started that in about middle school.
Can you freestyle for us now?
Can't do it. Can't do it.
Yeah.
That's
Can do it.
I,
Had to ask. I
I
had to ask.
retired a little bit, but
I had to ask. It's okay. It's okay.
but yeah, maybe I'll share a little song. You can maybe pop it or clip it into the
Okay.
interview. Um, but I have a recording setup right now. I'm using that microphone, and in
Okay.
college, was a signed artist for Small Town Records. So that was kind of a label on campus. Mike Posner blew up through that. So I really, before DJ, I was like, music's gonna be my big thing. Like I had some
Wow.
aspirations to like take that a different direction. But overall, I think I really was impeded by being overcritical and again being too afraid to fail. So I've
Mm-hmm.
made hundreds of beats, hundreds of songs, things like that, and never released it. But did get some cool opportunities. I got to open for Rico Nasty and open for other people for doing performances. But overall, transitioned into my gap years. I was interning in recording label or recording studios. Reached out to some labels and was thinking about continuing that. And ultimately, kind of when we threw that first party, I saw how much the DJs were getting paid, and I also
Mm-hmm.
had thought about getting a DJ board and pass, but the one I wanted was $800. But I think we paid the first DJ like 200 an hour. And what I noticed was that he was a Bay Area DJ, but because most of our people were transplants, he was asking me like, "What song to play next? What song to play next?" And like I was like, "Oh, play G Herbo, play this, play that."
Mm-hmm.
So for the next party, I bought that $800 board, and I would say within a month or two, it paid itself off. So it ended up being
Wow.
worth.
You're very very savvy. You're getting your MBA as well, you mentioned,
Yep,
right?
I'm trying
And I
to.
don't
Yep,
think you said you're trying, sorry.
yep. So right now I'm in the MD program, but we
Yeah.
generally apply for the MD MBA in our second or third year.
Mm-hmm.
So I just would get together my application in the near future.
That's good. I hope that goes well.
Thank you,
I
thank
hope that
you.
goes well. That's great. What else? I think we've touched on pretty much everything. My last question, we kind of talked about it at the like in the middle, but if you have any additional words to share for this question, it would be great to add it here. My last question is at the end of my interviews, I like to ask people to share a word of wisdom and encouragement to pre-med students, people applying to medical school. For you specifically, because we actually don't get a lot of men on this podcast very often, it's very hard to find men to interview. So, if you could also channel a message, especially to men, young men considering careers in medicine who are maybe deciding between pursuing a career in music and medicine or sports and medicine, whatever it is, you're someone that is doing it all. And I think that's great. And I think other people can also do it too. So, what do you have to share with the people?
I'll say do not ever neglect your talents and think that you should box yourself in. I
Mm,
think there's been a precedent set of being very one direction or one facing in how you operate. But I think we are a very creative generation. It would be a great thing if you can take your talents and use them in other ways. So, whatever talents you develop with sports, with music, there is never ever a situation where that was a waste. So, don't think that you have to go to college and play professionally. Don't think that you have to be the next Drake, the next whatever. Like you really can take those talents and use them creatively to be a businessman, to be a doctor, to be working in a post office. Just think about the way all of your experiences contribute to yourself and to your community, and very much try to think creatively.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, guys. Thank you so much for sharing that,
For
Adam.
sure.
I'm trying to think if I missed anything. Honestly, I think we've touched on it all. Um,
Yeah.
okay, good. Okay, that's good to know. Awesome. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. It was so great to talk to you, to learn more about your story, to learn more about the different sides of you, the creative side, the medical side, how they fuse and how they both stand alone independently. Your words were definitely very encouraging to me, and I'm sure they'll
Thank
be
you.
encouraging to someone else that is watching it. I hope people feel encouraged by your story. I'm always very thankful when people can share their honesty on this platform. So I'm thankful to you for being very open and vulnerable.
And thank you to you too. I saw exactly what you were doing at AMEC. Think you're bringing a whole another set of creative skills that,
Thanks.
again, is highly neglected in the medical community. And I love that
Thank
you're making
you.
this space. And I wish you all the best. I know that you'll be able to keep it going during medical school, and I think even then
Man.
you'll have even more people that will be able to join the podcast. So looking
Amen.
forward to
Thank you
seeing
so
the
much. I
finished
appreciate
product.
it. To the Met to Be community, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye.